Hello guys, my name is Graydale, and today we're gonna talk about team comps. More specifically, a team that I call Cryogene. But before that, I want to mention that my personal preference about this game is simply to enjoy it rather than beat it. You see, I don't really enjoy deleting enemies in one shot. Of course, it is satisfying. But if you clear out your daily commissions or clear Abyss floors in less than 30 minutes, then the game suddenly becomes boring afterwards, at least for me. So in this video, we're not gonna focus too much on big numbers, but rather point out synergies and mechanics that might fit your playstyle, so you can enjoy the game as well. So now that's out of the way, let's talk about why this team comp. A little bit of backstory. I've always been a tank in most games that I played. I like fighting up close with the enemies and not caring for the damage taken. So when I played the game and got Noelle, I fully built her as a surprise tank. Little did I know, a full defensive Noelle doesn't really do well without C6. So I looked at characters that can provide heals instead. I've even experimented with Barbara, hence the level 4 normal attacks. But Catalyst as a tank? Meh. So on to the actual team comp. Jean can provide heals for the entire party with her normal and burst. She can do crowd control with her skill, so much like a tank in my opinion. She can also swirl, meaning that she can spread elemental status to nearby enemies with her anemo skills. Arguably, physical build on Jean as a tank would kind of make sense, right? But my problem is that I can't really see any synergy between anemo and physical build. Elemental team comps, on the other hand, allows me to use Viridescent Venerer, which I find it hard to pronounce, so I'll just call it VV or Anemo set. This set is amazing for anemo characters, not just for the anemo damage bonus, but also for the 40% resistance reduction. Then we have Chongyun. Chongyun's skills convert normal and charge attack into cryo for sword, claymore, and polearm users inside its area of effect. His burst has a low energy cost, which is a great candidate for using 4-piece noblesse to provide that extra 20% attack for the entire party. With this duo, you will have 3 options when Jean is on the field. She can do physical, anemo, or cryo. Depending on the enemies that you're fighting, you might want to switch your damage type. You can do physical damage on enemies that are resistant or immune to cryo, like those pesky little slimes. But in general, you would want to do cryo damage against most enemies, especially enemies that are resistant to physical damage, like those ruin guards. So, popping up Chongyun's skill, then swirling with Jin to activate VV and debuff your enemies would make you hit harder. For Jin's goblet specifically, I prefer attack percent, especially for this build since it can help with her normal and charge attacks for both cryo and physical, while providing more healing for her burst. Now, if you want her skill and burst to do more damage, then I would suggest anemo damage bonus. But if you notice that you're doing a lot of normal and charge attacks, then you might want cryo damage bonus, which is not a bad idea in this case. Bonus tip: I usually record my game so that I can watch what I've been doing during a fight and try to look for improvements or tweaks. It also gives me a general understanding of how I play, so I suggest trying it out, and it might surprise you how much unconscious decisions you're doing while fighting challenging bosses. When I'm building teams, one of my considerations is to utilize resonance, primary for its buff but also for its energy regen. You see, using skill or burst most of the time generates particle that will then be absorbed by your character. And absorbing the same element type would provide more energy for your burst. So having the ability to spam, for example cryo skill, will help my cryo characters build up their burst faster. So my options was anemo and cryo resonance, and it's quite obvious for me. Anemo resonance focus more on agility, which is not bad, but not my preference. So I went with Cryo for that 15% crit rate, and because I know I can consistently apply Cryo to enemies. So I needed another Cryo character, and despite people saying that Ganyu is a DPS, I think her kit fits perfectly with what I'm aiming to build. Her skill taunts enemies much like a tank. Her burst does a lot of damage, and even more if the enemies are grouped up together. Yes, Jin pushes enemies away most of the time, but did you know she can pull and group up enemies if you hold her skill? You can even throw them upwards so they take full damage and won't leave Ganyu's burst. And to add on Ganyu's burst, her passive talent also provides 20% cryo damage. So the last slot in this comp is flexible. Knowing that the team's main element is cryo, then you can decide which elemental reaction you want to trigger. You can opt to use melt, or you can freeze enemies around you. I went with Hydro using Xingqiu because his skill does damage reduction and partially heals, again, much like a tank. His burst does a lot of damage as well. It's an extra, but worth noting that frozen enemies don't get pushed away by Jin's talents. This is beneficial for me because I don't have to run around chasing flying enemies. In terms of artifact, Jin would want 4-piece VV, and Chongyun with 4-piece Noblesse as mentioned earlier. Ganyu and Xingqiu can rock a 2-piece Noblesse to buff their burst and 2-piece of their respective elements. For weapon and stat priorities, this team is also flexible. You can play it as a quick swap, where you just switch through your characters to pop their burst, or you can play it a bit strategic, like doing a combo with Ganyu's burst and holding Jin's skill. If you want quick swap, then I'd recommend a good amount of energy recharge for all your characters. If you opt for more strategic, then you would want crit, elemental damage bonus, attack percent, also known as DPS stat priorities. I specifically included weapons as part of stat selection because they also provide a good amount of stat. Because in reality, your artifact stat selection may change depending on which weapon you're using, or vice versa. There's a lot of guides and YouTube videos out there on how to build a specific character as a DPS or as a burst, so I won't dig in deep around this. Again, analyze your game to know what you can tweak. I hope that by now you get the whole synergy or mechanics of the team, but if not, the idea is simple. Jin is the primary, she's not top tier damage dealer, but will provide you sustainability. So that's what the team is all about. Cryo characters dealing more damage, while Anemo and Hydro provides sustainability. I also find the team useful in the overworld because I have a Claymore for mining, Bow user for range or ruin guards, and Jin to push mobs off the cliff if I'm being lazy. So that's it guys. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll leave you with a few clips to enjoy. Cheers!
妖豆立ち去れ
元王帝君のために双眼消し歌よ錦と雨描きがたし
救急に寄りするよ
風の神我らを見はっ
おとなしく捕まれ
おさわり禁止風雪なしくず
歌よ錦となれ
風よ私にこっち
妖豆立ち去れ県民全票
風雪なしくずおさわりきついていきます
救急に寄りするよ妖豆立ち去れ
おさわり禁止
ありうる動くべきだこの件はわかるかい 剣印全表
剣に誓う。
封印厳剣
五感奥義。お触り禁止。へい。瑠璃のように落ちなさい。はあ。ついていきます。
封印厳剣剣を入れよ
部外者禁止。
雨描きがたし歌よに封印厳剣我が命を引きたまえ